What's up, everybody? Welcome to Room and Board. My name is Chris George.
I'm Zach.
And we just finished a first playthrough of Nemesis Lockdown. And it was a pretty great time. We recorded a playthrough. I just noticed that the audio on that one may have been a bit fuzzy. Hopefully I will have been able to fix that in post. But if you want to get a sense of how the game is played, and we're just learning it as well. We've played a lot of Nemesis, the first one, and Zach got Nemesis Lockdown, so we've had a whole day of Nemesis, thinking about it, enjoying it, unboxing it, and now this video is just to share our first impressions, final thoughts, how this compared with the other game, and to kick it off, I guess, did you enjoy this game? I mean, it's obvious. We had a friggin' blast.
I enjoyed this game. I think a more targeted question, because you've also played Nemesis.
Yeah. Is which is better?
Which is better, or does this stand enough on its own? I think as a game.
Yeah, I think those are two great questions. Number one is which is better, and number two, should you get both?
Yeah,
right. Because I think that is important. Both of these games are very expensive as well, right? Nemesis retail clocks in around $150. This probably, I don't know if it has a retail price.
I don't think it does yet, but I wouldn't imagine it being anything.
It's going to be probably $150 as well. And yeah, let's. What did you like better, Zach? This or Nemesis? My inclination, I'm leaning towards this as being the better version.
I think. Yeah. I think it's the one tough bit is I love the set on a spaceship part, but all the mechanics that this adds, I love.
Feel great.
Yeah. The light feels great. It gives you just enough control over the odds of the aliens showing up that it feels like you have control, but you don't. Right?
It really feels like you do have control.
It feels like you have enough control at the beginning, but then you lose it. And I can see that that battle is going to go on every game, and you might hold control of the order for a while, but it's going to fall apart on you, and I love that. Yeah. These contingency things, I don't think it came up so much because it was a two-player game for us. Yeah. But I can
love
see
the concept,
the social element of that coming to play. I love that.
Yeah. So for people who didn't watch the playthrough, we'll just explain a little bit what these are. Basically, there are these contingency tokens, and everybody on Mars will die unless you're valuable enough to the corporation that comes and rescues you. So one of these is determined randomly, placed face down, and then everybody else gets one token so you know what it's not. And so there's going to be this whole back and forth of talking to each other, and then there's some in the middle that you'll be able to have access to. In our two-player game, we each got two, which felt great.
And it's so much information.
And it was so fun to bounce off, and even we didn't really come up that much.
There were moments where I was like, I think I can escape the station now.
Yeah.
And complete my objective, but right? There's this little bug on the wall drawing you back. It's if I figure out what this is, I might need to go and do something. I might need to do it now.
Yeah.
It also there's
and in terms of the light mechanic on the ship, because I guess we'll explain that too. On the ship, there's no light. It's all darkness and it's all scary.
Yeah.
But in this one, there are 3 sections of the board, and those can be powered up. And if they're powered up at the end of the round, then all the noise tokens go away. And if you haven't played Nemesis, this is very significant because the more you explore, the more noise tokens build up, and the more aliens are likely to appear. And if you can get rid of those noise tokens, it feels like a game changer. I spent most of the game trying to deal with the lights and then running back into the darkness. And it didn't work out for me.
No.
But
yeah, I will say
the light mechanic feels so fun to play with. It felt so satisfying to turn the lights on. And it felt so satisfying to even have the idea of, I could turn the lights off in a floor that you're on and make it hard if you're planning on. Yeah. If you surround yourself with noise and you're planning on having that noise disappear, I could just turn the lights off in that area.
Or just move the light to your section where you need it. Yeah. So cool. I think if I was to summarize my opinion of Nemesis versus Lockdown, I've always described Nemesis it's the movie Alien, the board game, but not called Alien. It's not the branded Alien. Yeah. This does not feel anything like the Alien the board game, but it has much more of its own identity, I think.
Interesting.
Right? I think that as far as that statement, like, oh, it's Alien the board game gets you, is exactly the game you should prefer if you're only going to get one, right? If what you really desperately want is the Alien experience with chest bursters and aliens that look vaguely like the Alien and being on the Nostromo, and you want that aesthetic, that story going on, Nemesis is an amazing game and it does that really well. This does not feel that way in like some important places. It feels like its own thing, and I think it's better for it.
Yeah, you know, I didn't even clock that, but I agree with you, and I think the light mechanic has a lot to do with that, right? Because in Alien, it is that sense of creeping, and that the queen at any point can jump out, and the sense of danger escalating throughout. Here, it's more of trying to manage the board and explore these areas and figure out what you need to do to survive. Whereas the other one, it's like, okay, you have a little bit clearer picture. Sure, you can lie about if the engine room's fixed or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're right. This is a little bit less creeping, and I think I liked it because of that.
I also really like a lot of the specific mechanics in Nemesis, like fixing the engines, setting the destination on the ship. There's this great mystery that lasts 3 turns. You know what I mean? Like, very quickly you'll figure out, okay, he's just ignoring the engines completely. He's not trying to save the ship.
Right.
Oh, he's changing the destination. He beelined it that way. He's either trying to destroy the ship or he doesn't care at all. Like, there's sort of the promise of this social deduction thing going on that I think in Nemesis, it falls apart kind of quick. And your willingness to play the heel, I think, makes that mystery better, right? Like,
yeah,
when you in Nemesis, you get there. You always sort of feel like you get the 2 objectives, and one's like murder everyone on the ship, and the other is like, yo, leave with like $5 and like a friend. And the choice there is like, do I disturb the shit or do I not?
Yeah.
And it always feels like you always need someone to make the disturb the shit thing to really make that game shine. Here, I don't think I didn't feel that at all, and maybe it was just because it was a 2-person thing.
Yeah, well, also it should be said that this is my first 2-player game. I think this is your first 2-player game because we usually play it with a larger group. I'm surprised at how much I enjoyed it just as a 2-player.
Me too.
Yeah, I was expecting to lose a lot of that social deduction element, or like working with someone against Zach. Maybe that's why, I did so poorly because I didn't have anyone to work against Zach.
Yeah, I always love in Nemesis being the guy that, like, even when I don't need to, like, I light all the rooms on fire and I launch the escape pods and I laugh maniacally as I set the escape, like the self-destruct sequence, because it feels so good to do that in Nemesis. This, I didn't feel like I needed to do that kinds of things.
You didn't? Well, you would have.
Yeah.
There was a moment where I was in a place with an air vent.
Yes.
And
Zach I was going to kill you there because
discovered a place that could kill anyone who was in a place with an air vent. And luckily, I knew Zach well enough that even though he said, I'm not going to do that. Absolutely, I would have just been killed for the fun of it. Yeah. And you know what? That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess my first impression, Lockdown, really good. I'm thinking I probably will just play Lockdown and maybe just migrate the other aliens over here and see how they play.
Right. Because you have everything too.
I have everything.
You've all in.
Yeah. That's my like strong feeling right now.
Yeah, and so we only tried this with the base aliens, right? They're only the base aliens will come in the box, and then you also will have the Crytids or the Chitrids or the Crickly Crawly Cripple Crips.
Mushrooms.
I think
they're flesh-eating mushrooms.
Yeah, they're just plants.
Yeah.
But so that's a stretch goal that probably won't be available in retail. But I mean, if you get the other Nemesis, you're just going to get the base alien as well. And I honestly think with this sort of game, the base game is completely fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's always this talk about, the expansions make it so much better. You have to get the stretch goals. You have to get the upgraded components. And sure, yeah, the doors are really cool. And it's great that they can snap apart.
I've been playing with them the entire time we've been talking.
And be broken. I think that's awesome. but you really just need the base game.
Yeah.
Either base game, honestly.
Yeah, I think like the strength of like this game, it's like, you know, it's not a Euro game. It's got some soft edges. It's got mechanics that you might not always interact with every game, but I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Right?
Because then when you do interact with them, it creates a unique sense and a unique story, which is, I think, a huge draw to this game, right?
And like I don't think I've ever played a game of Nemesis or this. Well, I've only played one of this, but I've never played a game of Nemesis where it hasn't been story worthy. It hasn't been like recountable in a way that's very exciting and like cathartic. And I really like, you know, I guess board gamers call it like an Ameritrash game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is like peak Ameritrash in all the ways you want it to be. But I don't like that term either, because like,
well, people call it Amerithrash now.
Amerithrash.
Yeah. Which as
a reference to what?
Well, they're just like, oh, you're gonna thrash someone. It's just to make it not trash.
Oh.
That's the only difference.
I don't like that either.
I don't like it either. Yeah, I know. I want to come up with a different name.
All right. Fun.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, Eurogame or fun.
Right. Like,
no, I love Eurogames, but
this
is it's theme, right? And that's often what creates these sorts of stories. But that's not to say that the mechanics here aren't fun, because they are. Even when they are incredibly punishing or relentlessly frustrating, everything went wrong for me in that game.
There was, like, for an example, in the game we just played, there was a turn towards the end where Chris died, and then I was like, maybe I can get out now. And then I died, and then we were like, well, let's see what would have happened if we'd finished the game. We both would have died. And then we were like, okay, well, what about the contingencies with that? Yes, that would have killed both of us. Okay.
Well, no, the contingency wouldn't have. But if I jumped into the isolation chamber, it would have.
And like, there's a kind of person who would play this game who might have get to that point and be like, well, it didn't matter to begin with. But I enjoyed every step of this game.
Yeah, the journey is fun. Even when I was getting, like, I jumped into the nest, and then an event card was drawn that said, if anyone is in the nest. I mean,
and like, it was so perfect.
There are so many spots on the board. You never really want to be in the nest. You never really want to end your turn in the nest. I did it out of necessity because a monster appeared, mad that I stole its eggs. But
yeah,
it provides these sorts of moments. They're just fantastic.
There's so many random things that happen that the serendipity of everyone feels very, like, scripted.
Yeah.
Like, you were like, I don't know if I should stay in the basement. It's catching on fire. Oh, I'll stay there. Immediately the fire starts to spread.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if I should go into the nest. I'm going to take the chance. Alien shows up, angry that he take the eggs. I desperately need to find the archive. I don't think we'll explore every room in this board. It's the only room we didn't explore.
The one thing that I needed for my objective.
Oh, I'm going to stop my movement in this room. What's the room you've just discovered, Zach? A room that vents that specific room into space. Like, and like those things are not going to happen in every game, but every game something
like that does happen.
And it's going to feel really good when it does. And it does feel good.
Just going back to the comparisons between this and Nemesis, I also think that there are so many little touches here, even in the stretch goals. Like I talked about the doors that in the stretch goals of the first Nemesis, and you have them, there are doors that
are bigger than this and worse than this.
Yeah, they're bigger, and a core mechanic is you can break a door, right? So, but there's no way for that to do that with the terrain pieces that you had to purchase in the original Nemesis.
And so they just say put them on their side.
Yeah, and that's not fun.
But these ones, they're smaller, they're lighter, they fit in the main box. I think if you want to put them there. Yeah, maybe. They also have, I was just playing around.
Oh, you're playing with it?
They're definitely going to fit in there.
Nice,
but,
great.
like, also, they suit the mechanics a little better because they can be broken. And, like, I think that goes with all of the player decks that I saw. At least my player deck seemed much more interesting than the player decks I played with before.
Yeah, my player deck, I played as the lab rat. He was a survivor, which we can get to our starting location in a second, because that also was cool. You start in a different location depending on what character you choose.
Let's talk about it now, because we're already talking about it. But like me and both Chris and me, we got to pick two random characters and choose one of them. And I picked the survivor, and he picked the lab rat. And our cards said we start in the containment room, and I assumed that was just where everybody starts. I was like, oh, okay, we all start in the containment room. But I was looking at the components afterwards. All the other characters, all the other possible characters we could have chosen, start at the entrance.
Way up at the top of the building.
Right,
And
so
we were in the basement.
we started in the third basement.
Yeah.
But every other character class or type would have started at the top and moved down, but we started at the bottom and moved up. And that's completely changed, I think, our experience of the game. We started
for sure.
We started in the only floor with the lights off.
We started close to the power source.
Right. So
we were both the people that were clearly being experimented upon.
Oh, yeah. Once again, so many little things that like conspire together to make every time you play it different, I think.
Yeah.
But like our experience of this game would have been completely different from top to bottom if we'd started up here.
Yeah, or if we'd even started separated as well.
Yeah.
2-player. I think I probably would have enjoyed it less if we'd started in 2 different spots. I enjoyed at least starting in the same spot, and we immediately went in different directions. I don't think we were ever in the same room once.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're traveling with someone, you won't make noise if you're moving into a room that they are. So it's kind of nice. It's kind of good to move in groups, right? There's a benefit there.
It also puts you closer to people who want to
hurt you.
Yeah. It's another interesting thing. Like in a larger group game, there would have been more interactions with people, right?
Yeah.
We would have been closer to people. We would have been walking into each other's room more often. We would have been given the opportunity to both help and hinder each other more. And I think you were saying your deck is all...
Yeah, the lab rack also I think would have been better for more people because all of my cards, or a lot of them were, if you're attacking, if someone attacks you, you just blend into the wall and they attack a different character. So if the lab rat's just like sitting beside you and an alien shows up, they're just like... and the alien's like, I'm not dealing with that person. I'm going to attack the clear human and not the maybe human.
Right.
Which is really fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so... What were you saying before?
I was saying that the good thing about iterations on a system, and this is a standalone expansion, which is nice. Mm-hmm. It's not just an expansion. I think it's great that it is a standalone expansion. You can use the other characters in. I wish there was a big box system that had good storage. That it feels like it would be a nightmare to cross.
I feel like
different characters.
At the same time, I'm like very excited about trying the other characters or the other aliens in this game, and the other part of me is like, what if I get the components from the first box mixed into this box?
Yeah, it just
how am I going to separate them again?
Feels like it's going to be a nightmare. But that aside, they have clearly learned from Nemesis, and Nemesis is a great game. Yeah. Like I really enjoy Nemesis, but the monsters, when you hit them in Nemesis, you were supposed to just put a little cube on their base, and because the monsters are ever shifting, they could have like 10 health or they could have 3 health. But you had all these dumb cubes on these different bases that you're trying to move around with the monster, and it just didn't make any sense. And so in here, like they made these little dials where you just, they're tracking the monster. You know what? Actually, Zach, you should take a couple of these dials and use them for Attack on Titan.
Oh,
because you're never going to use all of them in this game.
I know, they give you plenty.
They give you a bunch.
Yeah, I was going to say, I should put some in the original Nemesis game and I could use them there.
Oh, you should do that too, yeah. Spread it around.
Yeah, spread the love.
Yeah, but just something like this sort of quality of life thing is really good. I mean, they didn't learn that this sheet of paper is still way too big.
And has so much space for more information that's important.
Yeah.
Like, if it's going to be this big, give us a little bit more information.
Yeah, and there's 2 of these. Like, there's 2 of these that have different information on it that are this big. Like, make it a small little thing that people can actually hold and doesn't take up table space on a thing that already takes up a lot of table space. Like, that's not a good quality of life thing. That's stupid, and both Nemesis and Awaken Realms should learn by now. But they have learned in terms of some of these other things. Like, this is such a great quality of life improvement, and it's great when you get a second iteration of a game that feels like it does improve upon the original in meaningful ways while not like detracting from the original.
Right, and also just not like shoving things in for the sake of making it new.
Yeah.
Right? Everything here feels very intentional and it works. Something I loved the original Nemesis for was it's got a great insert. I always thought it was a great insert.
Yeah.
This tray with all the tokens in it
was better.
1,000 times better.
Yeah.
It's easier to access all the tokens. They're not jammed in there. You can put this on the table, and like everyone has access to every token you
Pick it
can
up
possibly.
and pull it on if you see a little bit.
Like this is just the kind of trade that I would love in a normal. Like I
In
would
any
get,
game, yeah.
I would get like a Tupperware thing to do this.
Yeah.
But like this is just it's like not revolutionary or anything, but it's just a better storage
Yeah.
for the components you're going to use the most. And
Yeah, 100%.
there's like a bunch of little things like that like I like the taste of that.
Yeah, it was a really enjoyable experience. I like what other mechanics are different. What are
there's not a whole lot.
There's the laboratory. You can gain knowledge. So knowledge is a stat that you can gain through a number
like a
of
resource.
Yeah,
Yeah.
resource or more of an end game condition. So the end game conditions in this I felt were also a little bit fresher.
Yeah.
And I think that's another example of learning from the previous iteration of there were. I mean, we have to go through the whole deck and see how many are kill the other person, make sure player X doesn't survive, right?
Right.
But in this one, my other objective was have 7 knowledge at the end of the game. And so I was so focused on getting this knowledge this whole game, and so that was my game plan when things were uncovered. I thought, okay, I can seek out some knowledge and I can do it this way, and that's why I got tunnel visioned. But it felt that objective felt a little bit more exciting. I mean, yours was kind of the same as the other one, but for me, it felt a little bit more exciting than some of the other objectives in Nemesis. Although I guess in retrospect, they do feel a little similar.
I think like a big thing that stands out to me is because I've taught Nemesis a bunch of times to different people, and there's this part of the beginning of the game where you're like, there's 2 ways to survive. You get into the escape pods and you leave, or you fix the ship and stay on the ship. And almost never do people fix the ship, but there's you got to fix the engines, you got to set the location, you got to make sure that there's not too much fire, you got to make sure there's all these mechanics about making the ship work, and like so much of the stuff you do on the ship in Nemesis is revolving around like making this one victory objective possible. This you don't have a ship to fix, and you have more different kinds of objectives.
Yeah,
and they're not all interacting with like the same like there's not engines here to fix. And I think what it feels like is you can play a game in Nemesis and run around to fix the engines and try to set the location of the coordinates, and in the end that didn't matter because the ship is going to blow up anyway, or like someone's objective was to blow it up and now it's blown up. Your objective is ruined. In here they're more personal, like, oh, I need to escape, I need to get some information, I've got to build knowledge, and I think because in this these things cannot be taken from you. You can't invest in those and like have someone else destroy it for you.
Well, you can,
but
if like mine was kill you, well, I guess I would kill you, right?
Right,
but I think it's because all of them are involved with either. You always have a choice with getting to the bunker, but only one person can get to the bunker. And there are always these pods being sent out, but you don't know which one's going to happen when. So, and there's the isolation room, but you don't know if you're going to be killed in the isolation room, which you would have been in our particular game. That was like, oh, everyone else was fine, but if you're in the isolation chamber, because we started out as the lab rat and the survivor,
that's very thematic.
They hated us.
Like
they wanted to destroy
all the facility staff already evacuated. Exactly. They left us to die.
They wanted to destroy their horrible testing that only they could do on Mars.
Yeah. I think I agree with all of that.
I think because they're rooted in get to safety, kind of all get to safety, but you don't know where that safety is, and it's figuring out where that safety is versus I'm just going to blow the ship up or not. That did feel a little bit.
Your personal secret objectives feel more personal.
Yeah.
As opposed to. It's so like dependent on the community. Yeah. Which I think is a better shift.
I mean, I enjoy it. Again, this is just from a first play, right? Like we don't know the objectives as well as we might for the other ones, but just I think the structure of the game lends itself to that being interesting.
Yeah. Another thing that I don't know if you had any items like this, but one of my items was a flashlight.
I saw it, but I threw it away.
And if my intelligence had been 5 or 6, then I would have been able to use the flashlight to scare away the aliens.
Yeah.
And like
You know how to make the shadow puppet.
Yeah, the shadow puppet that freaks them right out.
Oh, it's a big dog.
Oh, it's Elmo. It's Oscar the Grouch. Run, alien, run.
Their only weakness.
But you know, like that's also like a victory condition that you can progress, but also has just mechanical benefits that you might advance your knowledge without that being your victory condition because you want to interact with other mechanics of the game as well. And I think that's
well, the knowledge is also a potential trigger of death for everyone.
Right.
So if you don't have more than 4 knowledge, you can lose. If that was one of the things that was down there.
Right.
So that's also another potential. Yeah. What another. We'll talk about the differences, the differences between the two. Another difference is Zach's objective was to send the signal. And this is a common objective in Nemesis as well. There's a signal room. You go to it. You discard 2 cards.
This was so
you
good.
Send the signal, right? And oftentimes there's no reason to send the signal unless that's your objective. And you send the signal and people go, oh yeah, okay, that's your objective.
Right.
You've achieved your objective. In this one of the conditions might be send the signal. So everybody has a vested interest in potentially also checking that off their Hope I Live list.
Right.
And then also if you send the signal.
If you send the signal, then other people can look at your secret objective.
Yeah.
So like there was a point where I was sitting in that room and I was like, I know I need to send the secret
because that was
the
your
signal
objective,
as my secret objective. I don't want Chris to know what my secret objective is. Do I hold off on sending the signal until the game is about to end?
Yeah.
And I also don't want him because I also knew that sending the signal was not going to be this.
Yeah.
And I wanted to like I thought about maybe I don't send the signal so I make him think he doesn't need to send the signal. Or maybe I'm getting this backwards. I had the blue token.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe it's possible that the objective is to send the signal. So if I don't send the signal, maybe I'll trick Chris into not sending the signal, and then I'll send the signal last second. And
then on the chance,
right.
Yeah. But just the fact that it gives you that pause, even right, and that option.
There is a choice there.
It's just enough to an already existing mechanic that. Feels a little bit more exciting and fresh, and it could just be because we've played Nemesis a number of times, and this is the new one, right? But I think there are all these little differences that make it kind of cool. Yeah,
absolutely. Even just like the rooms that felt very similar, like there are escape pods rooms in Nemesis. The fact that you don't know when these escape pods are going to launch makes it like, do I hang around in this room? To see that it's going to launch, or do I like shove myself into this escape pod and just hope
that it launches?
Like that's like such an interesting twist on the same kind of idea.
And as the game clock ticks down, the more information you have about those pods too. So you can then know, okay, I'm going to make a beeline for pod B because I know it's either pod B or pod C, and I'm taking that 50-50 gamble. Because that's the only way I can get out of here alive, right?
Right. The air vents were a thing in Nemesis as well. It felt like there was a lot more ways to interact with them in this game. I had a card to interact with them. There was more items that interacted with them.
Yeah, I had an item that interacted with them.
There was a room that let you interact with them.
Yeah.
Again, not a huge change. Tiny little thing. But it was welcome.
Yeah. Yeah, anything else? There's only one other difference that we didn't mention. There are these computer cards which you can only interact with in a room that has a computer icon on it, on a floor that has power, and they do various things. And these abilities are very powerful as well. Like
and very flexible.
Yeah, very flexible. And in retrospect, like it feels fun that they are so powerful because it encourages people to use them. Right.
Yeah. Something about the computer rooms in Nemesis, the original game, was the computer token icon let you use the room ability of another room with the computer. Yeah. And that was potentially really powerful if all the rooms were explored.
Yeah.
But for a big chunk of the game, there'd be like four or five rooms explored and none of them would have a computer, and you you would be a character like there was the scientist who could do all kinds of cool computer stuff, but if not,
If the computers
if
weren't
if the
there,
rooms weren't
yeah.
explored, you couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And if there is a room with a computer in it, but it just blows up the ship, and that has nothing to do with what I want to do.
Yeah.
It felt very restrictive. This feels like, hey, there's a computer. You can unlock the Matrix. Like it feels like you control the board all of a sudden.
But there is also a risk because you can draw this card, a lockdown card, Nemesis Lockdown. And when it's drawn, your computer malfunctions, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you get too many malfunction tokens on the board, everyone loses the game. That's where the semi-co-op part comes in, or part of it, right? Mostly it's just try not to die. And you know that thing will come up, so every time you use a computer action, you're potentially passing it on so that the next person.
And you also like need the power to be on to use the computer,
and so somebody needs to turn the power on. And if you're the schmuck,
and it's really hard to be the person who's using the computer and turning the power on. So like, it feels like if we had more players, we would have had more of a like, oh, he's turned the power on, I'm gonna get a cheeky computer use in.
Yeah.
Oh, I've turned the power on. He's using my computer.
It felt like we did have enough time. To do a lot of things related to power.
Mm-hmm.
And I deliberately didn't turn it back on at one point because we had a number of turns and I felt like I could accomplish my goals. I couldn't, but I felt like it. Okay, we've talked a lot about the positives.
Yeah.
We're going to throw Zach's copy of Nemesis in the trash. If it wasn't compatible with this...
I'm gonna pull the characters and aliens out, but the rest of it's junk.
No, I mean, the other Nemesis is still a great game.
Oh, yeah.
I would still play it any day of the week. Maybe any day. Depends how tired I am.
Yeah.
It's a long game. Our playthrough, our two-player playthrough, and it was 2.5 hours, which felt pretty short comparatively to how long the game usually takes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's all because there were 2 players, but I also think that this game really benefited from us knowing how to play Nemesis. All we needed to do was learn the changes and then be good to go. So we were able to pull it out, learn it at night, and we may have made some rule mistakes. There are a couple of things that we have to check, but for the most part, it felt pretty solidly. And what's great in a game like this too, and Nemesis, is if there are rules, you can just say, well, what thematically makes the most sense? That's probably what they were going for anyway.
Yeah. It's not like such a highly. It's not an F1 race where like everything is tuned to like.
No. You're gonna get these random events that are gonna completely screw you over, and you just have to be able to enjoy the time as it's happening. Yeah,
there's something wonderful about being in a room that's caught on fire with an alien bearing down, and you're being like, no.
Oh, it was horrible. But it was a great time. I enjoy losing this game as much as I enjoy winning it.
I mean,
I really do.
Even at the end, I was like so cocky about oh, you've died in the basement. I'm gonna go and get in the moon car and drive away. And like here, I was pulling on the handle of the moon car, and aliens are crawling up behind me and pulling me back into the station.
Yeah,
it was so good, so good.
So things that you disliked about this game. Let's be critical.
I think that this is a sin of Nemesis as well. They're nice components. There's so many components.
There's so many,
right? Like I was trying to set this up, and I was taking
the table presence itself is somewhat overwhelming.
Yeah,
and it honestly detracts from getting it to the table as frequently as I would like.
And I sort of talked about this a little bit earlier, but like there's systems that you're never going to interact with in a game.
Yeah,
but they have all these components with them that are on the desk, right? Like we played Nemesis a bunch of times. We just played Lockdown. I've never seen anyone interact with the item crafting mechanic.
Right.
But it's
never
ever.
I
think it's awesome. All of those items.
Oh, it looks
super cool.
It looks really cool. Am I ever going to do it in any game?
It's got a whole deck. It's got a whole help card that helps you know how to use it. And like, I don't think that like they should cut that system out necessarily. It's a cool system, but it's like there are components upon components, and you'll set them up, and you'll be so careful about like putting them in sleeves, or this goes here, this goes here, and at the end of the game you'll be like, we never touched that deck.
Yeah,
we never touched those pieces.
Yeah. It is fiddly in that way. Another fiddly aspect to it is the bag building aspect of it. You have to create this alien bag, and I said this during the playthrough. that I have never known, because this is Zach's game. He owns both copies. I've never known how to set that bag up, and I don't want to know.
And
I don't.
Yeah, it's a little fiddly. It's completely different for each of the different aliens.
Yeah.
So like these aliens are different than the original Nemesis aliens, are different than the Carnomorphs, is different than the.
Is it different for every player count too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they all have different kinds of tokens with different kinds of symbols. It's a thing to like wrap your head around. It's fine if you're just learning one, but like to hold all of them in your head is tough.
Right. And that's another reason why, like, don't get the expansions. Don't pay through the nose for Kickstarter expansions. You don't need them. The base game is so satisfying as it is.
Yeah, I think so. And like the same phrase, I'm like, I don't enjoy managing this bag, but also the joy of reaching into this bag and finding out what aliens come to eat your face off.
Yeah, that's pretty fun. It's a good mechanic. It's just annoying to set up.
It pays its rent, but you got to know there is rent.
Yeah,
right.
That's a good. That's a good way.
I think my biggest gripe for both games is still like the components. I also think there is some.
That's also why I love
if they're going to be a ton of components, they better be good components.
Yeah. But also like if you don't need the stretch goals, these are stretch goals. So if you in the retail copy, you'll just get standees for the doors. But like Zach purchased the terrain expansion, and it's a bunch of doors and it's a bunch of escape pods, and they're just to look pretty, right? But the fact like the other doors are like this big, they're so clunky to pull out. They have their own designated box. Like
they're at the bottom of that box.
They're at the bottom of that box. It feels like.
Let's add 5 minutes to our setup in order to use this cool thing.
Yeah, which you want to use because you bought it, right? So obviously you want to get the table presence out of it and all the benefits from it. But that's something about this game is that it is so fiddly and almost bloated.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's on that line. Like, I understand everything has a purpose. I understand everything. That's why the trays do make such a big deal. And make a big difference. It's almost bloated.
Yeah,
it isn't.
I remember there was
it's close.
There was a little bit
of one more penny.
Yeah,
and it's
there was a bit of a controversy in the original Kickstarter where they said they were going to have slime tokens and wound tokens and ammo tokens and I think there was a couple other things, and they replaced all of them with either these or these tiny red cubes, and people were like, you promised us 6 different tokens and then we got 2. If there was 6 different tokens,
it would be horrible.
It would be horrible.
Yeah.
But like
sometimes you just need cubes.
Sometimes you just need cubes. But yeah, I think that would be my biggest gripe with the game. Also, it's got a great table presence with the giant aliens, and like this game I think is much more colorful than Nemesis, which is a big boon.
Yeah, you were saying that too, because the board on Nemesis is very dark, and it's
a lot of blacks and grays, which is very like thematic, but it also sort of like a little bit dead on the table. This is a little bit more, there's more reds, there's more earth tones, there's more colors on the actual rooms. It feels a little bit more punchy.
I keep looking down.
I know, me too. But I think one of the issues is also just because it's got so much table presence, whenever I've been like, to someone who's not played it, like, we should play Nemesis, I'll teach you this game, it's great. The actual how to play, it's very easy. You play cards, you do actions. But like
now that's interesting because somebody in the Discord, in my Discord, they mentioned, Nemesis is one of those games where it feels like you need a DM to play, like to teach you. And
what I was about to get at was like the look of it on the table. Every time I've tried to teach it to someone, people have been like, this is a big complicated, like this is intense, and I'm like, well, it's like, have you played like any game where like you've got like 5 cards and you play a card to do an action and there's 3 actions you can do, and like the card also does another action. So like I feel like there's lots of games with that exact same mechanic, and it's like simple and I can explain that in one sentence and it's very clear.
Yeah.
But like I think the impression that the game gives is like this is a huge sprawling thing, and that is good because it gives you the feeling it's a big sprawling thing. But when you're trying to like bring people into it, it feels too big and sprawling. But you were sort of like,
no. I was wondering your experience, because I've never felt this to be necessarily too complicated, because I personally am okay with the mystery of it. There are a lot of games where I want to know everything about the game before going in, and often how I teach games is obnoxious to anyone who learns them, because I'm like, no, you also need to know this tiny little thing, because that links into the strategy there, and that links into the
Because
strategy
I don't want to
here.
beat you by using this one little rule in turn 5.
Yeah, it's like
You need to know the rule when I use it to beat you.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like, I'm thinking ahead, and I know that I will use that, and I know that it is effective, and so I want to communicate those like effective strategy points so that people can play. But for this, I feel personally very comfortable in the unknown, maybe because of the theme, maybe because like, these are all new rooms, and every room does a different action, and all of your cards do different actions, and every item you get does a different action, and every event you draw, there's going to be something different, and every monster attack, there's going to be different text on a card. And so in a game like this, I feel like it is okay to, if you are picking it up or you are learning it, to give those initial rule points to scratch the surface, and then you'll spend. That's why you need a good reference sheet, because you will be referencing it every time a new room is revealed, right?
I think.
What does this do?
Yeah, I think as I grab another shovel of dirt to put on top of old Nemesis, um, I think definitely a thing with old Nemesis is the actual playing of the game is not a hard thing to teach, but the teaching them how, or teaching someone how the engines can be fixed or damaged, and what number of engines relate to how the ship is going to fly away. There's like four or five different destinations you can set the ship to, and all of those destinations have a different effect on the ship and the crew and people's victory. You've got to teach that. You've got to teach, okay, well, when do the escape pods leave? How do they leave? There's all these.
You have to teach everything about discovering the alien's weaknesses. You have to teach what happens when you hit an alien, how you determine their hit points. There are a lot of things. So I do understand that feeling of, I need somebody who knows that.
Yeah, and I think a little gold star I will put on this one is, I don't need to teach anyone how to repair a starship before I teach them how to play the game. I think in this, it's, hey, you ought to get out of this underground base. These are 3 ways you get out. And like, I don't need to teach them, like, all right, here's the engines. This is how you check them. This is how you fix them. You need at least 2/3 of them to be working. You also need to set the, like.
I guess you'd have to explain the light mechanic though in this, right? Like, that played a decent amount.
Yeah, I think a lot of the cards that use the light mechanic also just told you what difference the light mechanic would make. But yeah, I agree. I think there's just, I guess my gold star is just like, the systems you would have to explain, I feel, are less important to like your objectives and things. Like, you might have the objective in original Nemesis, fix the ship,
right?
And you're a brand new player and you're looking at that and you're like, okay, give me a space engineering like. You have to explain every aspect of how the ship works, so I know how to fix it, so I can achieve my objective. But in this, it's like, at least from the objectives I've seen, it's like, get out with X, get out and do Y. And I think that is a simpler thing to teach for sure, because no one needs to know how to maintain the status quo here, just how to manipulate these systems to escape.
Yeah, I buy that. I still think you're going to come across that. I feel like a lot of this could be colored by our particular familiarity with Nemesis, right? Now that those things do feel second nature to us because we have played it a number of times, or enough to know it. Even though I haven't played it for a while, so I was happy to do the playthrough. I was like, now, Zach, please explain this thing for the audience, and certainly not for me. But I think in terms of when do things open up, like the time tracker, managing... I think there are, like I mean, we said,
we're both very familiar with the game. I still looked up in the rules a bunch of times. So, yes.
Exactly. It will be fiddly, and there will be those moments for the first, I don't know, 5 games at least, where you're looking at things up in the rules for sure.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there isn't going to be a one game growing pain with this sort of game.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a game that you'll want to play more than once every 2 months, because you're going to forget it, and it's going to feel like a lot of little things that you have to learn and remember.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a very good criticism for it.
But anyway, it still was a blast. Zach, explain your rating system to
Oh,
people.
okay.
And then give it a rating. Zach has
I have 3 ratings.
He rates it from a 1 to 10.
I rate from 1 to 10.
But he'll rate
My rating system is either it's a 1, in which case, A, don't buy it. B, don't play it if someone wants to play it. C, then I can give us something a 5, which means, hey, if someone has it and wants to play it, your answer is going to be 100% yes, because it's a decent game, right? There's lots of games that are 5s that are like, right? 5s.
Yeah.
If someone wants to play it, you play
10.
it, right? If it's on the shelf, if you own it, if you find it for cheap, it's a 5. Grab it. It's like, this is a good time in a box. And then 10 is go out and find it. If you can convince the people you're with to play it, play it, right?
Why not make it a 3-star system?
Because, well, like
Michelin star.
Because if I say it's a 3, then people are,
oh, okay,
right?
People won't relate to it.
People don't relate to it. They're like, how does this fit into my scale? And I'm like, it's a 1, a 5, or a 10. It's either not worth your time, or good. Absolutely worth your time.
But see, I don't ever think 5s are good. If I rated something a 5, I wouldn't want to play it.
But like, I think like this is my schedule, my system, because I think rating all things on like a 10-point scale, we're like, well, this is a 7 and this is a 7.5, and like, I think that's meaningless in the end, right? Like, if you're making decisions about what you want to buy or what you want to play, or friends are over and you're thinking about your own collection or about the games they brought over, like being like, oh, he brought over Sheriff and that's a 7.5, and he brought over this and it's like a 7.83, and like
we're going with 7.83.
I'm madness. And like, also, like, there's games in different genres that I don't think you can scale against each other. Like, I don't think you're ever going to put Nemesis and like Caverna on the same scale and say like, oh, well, therefore, like, Caverna marked a 9 because it's like a great Eurogame worker placement, and Nemesis ranked a 7 because it's like an adequate American sort of adventure thrashy. I don't like that name. It's a fun movie game.
I think Caverna's a bad example because they're both fairly like sprawling. There's a few similarities between the.
You're right. I'm just thinking because we were talking about
Caverna.
But like, I don't think those are actual like comparable. Like, just you can't compare a comedy to a like Schindler's List. Right?
Yeah, you
like,
laugh in Schindler's List.
You can have a 10 comedy and you have a 10 for Schindler's List, but you're not going to say like, oh, like Laurel and Hardy Meet the Mummy is better than Schindler's List. You're not going to make that argument, right? So I'm going to just put all my games at a 1, a 5, or a 10 because I'm either not going to want to play it, be happy to play it, or very excited to play it. And,
I like the scale. I mean, I like your scale a lot. Yeah. I would never use it because it feels so dirty.
Yeah, your comments would be filled with anger. It'd be vitriol.
Well, I mean, I don't really
people trying to talk down your 10s into 9s.
I personally give. I'll write things down as a 10, but it's true. I don't like if I'm rating something, I'll give it like seal of approval or like seal of distinction or like best of the year forever. I mean, I haven't given out like a game of the year. Normally, I lead up to it, and then I get someone to dump all its components on my head if I say game of the year. So I can't say that this is the game of the year. But
it would hurt you. There's too many components, Chris. I don't know how I'd put them back in the box.
Yeah, but luckily this isn't an official review, so I don't have to put that down there. So you give it 10, obviously.
I give it a 10.
Yeah. I mean, it's awesome. I mean, this I would give it at least. I mean, first impression, right? I would give it at least a 9. It's really good. I think I do like it more than original Nemesis, which I also probably would have rated a 9. So I don't know what that says. You would have rated that a 10, right?
I would have rated it a 10.
Yeah, original Nemesis is a 10.
I think you also just need to consider, like, does this experience, does this game like achieve what it sets out to do? And like, it sets out to like pit you against aliens in a life or death situation where you're probably going to die, and it's going to be exciting and unexpected. And it does all of those things. And so I can't...
And it's given us enough to talk about and to be excited talking about for...
like an hour?
It's been like 50 minutes just talking about it. Which is cool. That should show you... like, and I still feel... You and I always have these sorts of long conversations, which is why I was excited to play it with you and also just film this afterwards. Might as well film it, right? Because our friendship should only be content, as we've been saying. But... because it's fun to talk about games. That's the real reason. It's fun to talk about games, and it is still fun to talk about this one and to dissect it as well. So anything else to say before we finish up, Zach? Let's let the people get some sleep.
Yeah, go to bed. And also, like, I guess my like word of advice: it's okay to like walk out of the game and be like, "Oh, I didn't enjoy this thing, but I enjoyed this game," and like keep those two thoughts like separately. Like,
You
can both,
didn't enjoy this thing, but you'd enjoy the game?
like, you can die at the end and feel bad
right.
about it.
Yeah.
But you can also be like, "Oh, but it was good."
Yeah.
And I don't think because like you can pick out something that like made you feel something and it was maybe not like joy.
Right.
It's not necessarily
A bad game.
A bad game.
Interesting. Yeah, I think this it gives such cinematic experiences. Don't pay scalper prices for it though. Like, it's popular enough that it'll come back, it'll get to retail, and retail is just fine, and you will have a great experience. And it's so quality. Like, the only thing that we used from the stretch goals were these little doors. And that's completely fine to not have them. It will not impact your experience. I don't think you need to go out and get an all-in to Nemesis again. Just do retail. And it is an expensive purchase, right?
Yeah.
So
Also,
really make sure you are interested in that theme being above all else and the storytelling that it provides versus like, oh, I'm going to have a really intense strategic game. My strategy was perfect, and it really backfired on me.
Yeah, I mean, there was not like a flaw in your decision making. Yeah, I will just add on, like, if you can only find the original Nemesis, like, don't look at it like the ugly twin.
Oh yeah, it's still fantastic, right?
Still fantastic.
The changes we are talking about here are really minute, but they feel nice, and that's the whole point of this video is to compare those differences, just in this at least first impressions thing. Yeah. So, until next time.
I don't have a catchphrase.
And cowabunga, dude.
You did exactly what I wanted you to do.
I'm so upset at you. Thank you so much for watching. See you later.